House is expected to vote today on a measure that would keep President Trump from pursuing any further military action against Iran without the consent of Congress. While the measure is expected to face an uphill battle in the Senate, Republican Senators Mike Lee of Utah and Rand Paul of Kentucky have said that they would back the bill in the upper chamber.
Both senators addressed the press yesterday. Here's what Senator Mike Lee had to say about that briefing.
They had to leave after 75 minutes while they're in the process of telling us that we need to be good little boys and girls and run along and not debate this in public. I find that absolutely insane. I think it's unacceptable. And so I don't know what they had in mind. I went in there hoping to get more specifics as far as the factual, legal, moral justification for what they did. I'm still undecided on that issue, in part because we never got to the details. Every time we got close, they'd say, well, we can't discuss that here because it's really sensitive. We're in a skiff. We're in a secure underground bunker where all electronic devices have to be checked at the door, and they still refuse to tell us. I find that really upsetting.
So joining us to discuss more about that briefing lawmakers received and the vote in the House today is Democratic Congressman Ruben Gallego of Arizona. He's a U.S. veteran and also a member of the House Armed Services Committee. Great to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
So, Congressman, if you could react to what we just heard there from Senator Lee, do you share his assessment of the briefing you received?
Well, for some reason I couldn't hear what he said, but if I imagine it's probably the same thing that I feel. I got a good idea. And look, I actually looked at the intel. I went and read the War Powers Resolution Act in the classified room, the SCIF, as we call it. And also, I've had classified briefings for months prior to this. And there is nothing that I had heard before, or nothing that I read today, that told me that there was an imminent threat for us to take such a risk by taking out Soleimani. And at the same time violating the Constitution of the United States and starting a war without the consent of Congress.
So, Congressman, how are you looking at this War Powers Act resolution today and the amendment? What would be the specific change that made it? Would it make it so that the president cannot take any offensive strike against the country of Iran? And would it have actually prevented the Soleimani strike?
So yes, this would have prevented the Soleimani strike in the sense that we believe this would have triggered a war. So he would have to come and ask us for permission, at least to identify why this is an imminent threat that we have to take action. Of course, there are certain leeways out of this, and we have to be careful not to give this president too much leeways. Defense of our troops, imminent threat to the country, imminent threat to officials. But it's a very scary time that we're dealing with right now because this president clearly doesn't have full command of the issues, and that's how we ended up in this situation, which I still think could spiral out of control. We are in not a great situation. If you actually think about the geopolitical goals of Iran, one of them is certainly for us to get pushed out of Iraq. And what we just did is we converted 2 weeks ago all these protesters in the streets that were shouting, Iran, get out of Iraq, and now they're trying to get us out. These same protesters are now turned against us. So in Soleimani's death, we may have accomplished Iran's strategic goals, and I think that at the end is one of the biggest tragedies.
Congressman, my question is, why didn't Democrats act sooner? I mean, this was all predictable. Tensions have been ratcheting up with Iran for some time. I know some progressives were pushing to take action more quickly. Why was nothing done before now?
Well, certainly I've been actually talking about this for quite a while, including back, I think, in November when there seemed to be a ratcheting up of efforts in terms of trying to get at least propaganda moving to justify a war or a strike. And there was efforts made by a couple of us to actually put it into the NDAA in terms of the repeal of the AUMF. But, we do have the difficulty of dealing with the Senate. And at the end of the day, until we have at least 2 more senators besides Lee and Rand Paul helping us out over there, it's going to be difficult for us to do anything.
Yeah. And so, Congressman, you're a U.S. military veteran yourself. The Iraqi parliament, in response to some of this, and perhaps even more so now, wants the United States to leave. Is that an outcome that you think would be beneficial to America?
Look, I think we should leave Iraq, and I think it can be beneficial to us for us to do it because we need to actually really realign our focus and actually, focus towards the future for future threats. The problem is that we want to leave Iraq with Iraq as our friends, as an ally, and not as a proxy state to Iran. And what just occurred. This president's actions probably has spurred Iraq to be more of a ally to Iraq. And even more dangerous is if we leave suddenly, that we have sectarian violence breaking up between the Kurds, the Sunnis, and the Shia. So these are all the things that the president should have considered before he made that strike, and I sincerely doubt he actually did.
Yeah.
Congressman, grateful for your service and also for your time today. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Happy New Year.
Absolutely.
Happy New Year.
Next on Rising, a presidential candidate with firsthand experience serving overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan wars, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard.
She's going to share her thoughts on the president's Iran address, the current crisis, and much more. That's next.